Hello there, YouTube! Welcome to the Hidden Knowledge of the Modern Times. We have our man Samael here and me, Amman. We are your hosts, graciously. And today we have three guests. The Wendigo.
I'm a shapeshifter. I won't reveal what I actually am. I'm just a shapeshifter of sorts.
Say hello, everybody.
Yes.
You're live right now.
How are you doing? What's up,
Steve,
guys?
a normal human being, and Ephraim,
The Mushroom King.
the Mushroom King.
I'm
I
so
love
glad
it.
you could join us today. I know it took a lot of effort to try to get you here because there's a lot of counsel in between you and, I guess, the throne. But I really appreciate you joining us. How is the woods this time of year?
Very grounded. I'm very grounded in my spiritual beliefs because I am a mushroom and I'm in the ground.
Very cool. Really
You're
glad
one
to
of the
hear that.
oldest beings on the planet.
Yeah, worshipped by some cultures.
Yeah, right.
Called God's flesh.
I am worshipped by the Aztecs.
Nanakakatzel, or however you say it.
That's what they call it.
Some cultures do, but anyway.
So,
Alright.
what's our first discussion topic for the night?
Well, is God a mushroom? That's what we're talking about.
That's
God
really,
and
that's really
psychedelics.
on the nose, huh?
Is God a mushroom? Tell me the name of God, you fungal piece of shit.
Mushroom King, what do you think about that?
What do I think about, like, spirituality and psychedelics?
No, it's is God a mushroom is the discussion question.
I don't think he is.
So, there
Think
is
he
a
is?
thing called stoned ape
I
theory.
don't think he is.
You know what that is?
Stoned ape.
Oh
theory.
yes. Well, basically everybody. They found mushrooms and then they became intelligent, basically.
Yeah, it helped us
Neanderthals.
develop our creativity as a species. Just like finding a pile of elephant dung with some weird mushrooms on it.
Hell yeah.
Monkey picked it up, monkey ate it.
I remember
Monkey
that.
saw some crazy shit. Monkey told his friends.
Basically,
He showed them
I've
the
heard that
mushrooms.
before. Yeah. Stoned ape. We're just like Neanderthalish.
Some
humans.
interesting theories out there, like what started things, you know? What started the beginning of this or that? It's pretty cool.
Definitely.
I personally don't feel like God is a mushroom. I feel like such
I'm
classifications
not really of that belief.
are not like of application to the spiritual all.
Mushrooms.
God
though,
is partially a mushroom, if you believe it's
Yeah, I mean mushrooms are a part of God.
Well,
If mushroom-
if God is everywhere, I don't know, maybe it's somewhat.
If God made us in His image and we breathe in oxygen and plants breathe in carbon dioxide to let out oxygen, actually, believe it or not, mushrooms have gills and they actually breathe in oxygen like us. They're like a fleshier. Yes, didn't know that. They actually breathe in oxygen and let out carbon dioxide just like we do. So the concept of that, yeah, it's like they're flesh. They're more like us than other plants are.
It's interesting.
That's very cool, actually.
They are very
They
intelligent.
do have gills, yeah, that's really sweet.
Me?
Mushrooms.
Oh.
They're actually intelligent.
Well, I thought you were talking about me.
That would be so flattering.
Well, you've seen
It'd
it
be
so
a nice,
far.
nice ego stroker there.
right. I am the Mushroom King, yeah.
Oh, actually.
Yeah, fun facts. So, Jason, what's our next question? I
Alright.
think we can really dig into the meat of the mushroom here.
So, are psychedelics medicine? And would you consider religion some sort of medicine for us all, opiate of the masses? So, if psychedelics and drugs are considered medicine, like, you know, intoxicants,
Everything.
then
Yeah.
the question extends.
You guys want to try answering that?
So it's... I'd have to hear the question again, if I'm being honest.
Would you consider psychedelics medicine?
Yeah, definitely, dude. You can really people get over addictions with that kind of stuff. It creates new neural pathways, so you can honestly think completely differently afterward. You can basically tap into those. You can now the way I see it, now that those pathways have been created through the help of those mushrooms or any psychedelic, I think. I've only tried mushrooms, but it really, like, now that those have been established, you can go through them, basically.
I will say something too. If you're done.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, I feel like everything is on this earth for a purpose, including, say, natural opium, which is now ruining our streets, you know. and I feel like everything was made for its purpose to be medicinal, and like these things were a blessing, and I feel like we abuse them too much, and I feel like psychedelics are a very great blessing as well, and they help us like get through certain situations and with creativity, and like they're very psychoanalytical. They help you kind of understand things. They can even make you more empathetic towards your wife or your spouse. It can change marriages, you know, for the
I
better.
agree.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, you're the one most experienced with that. Have you done acid with your wife?
No, I've not. But she knows that I have done acid seldomly. I don't like trip on it anymore. I feel like microdosing is where it's at because
Yes.
it kind of refreshes you, and you are in tune with some of the cosmic forces that are out there. But that's what I've done for the last couple of years. But I do think that psychedelics are very spiritual in nature, and that taking psychedelics in moderation, I think going overboard can kind of throw you out of the loop.
Yes.
Fry your brain, yeah.
Yeah, fry your brain. But in moderation, yes, they've always been used as a spiritual tool by early peoples, and we can use them much in the same way if we put our minds to doing that.
I just don't feel like you should ever put faith in something that of the earth itself. I feel like you should use it as something to help you. You know?
Yeah,
Well, like a
it's
tool.
definitely a tool. Yeah, it's not. I don't think there's anything to worship. No offense with
Yeah.
your mushroom kingdom, but I think that it is just a tool to be utilized.
Yeah, exactly.
So why are you a kingdom?
Because I
Sorry
want,
to
I
question
want to
your
stroke my
authority, sir.
ego, okay? I'm the biggest mushroom out of the cake, man. A mushroom king.
So you don't think we should put like our faith in religion and God and everything like into psychedelics? You don't think can you meet God on a psychedelic?
I feel like you can meet things if you really tap in your energy towards it, but I feel like a lot of those
Just
things...
like you could sober, just in a different mindset.
Yeah, I feel like, but I don't think those things should be accessed through drugs. I feel like drugs should be used for the purposes that they're on this planet for, and like you can make up whatever you want for that belief, because it's kind of new in age. Like to really be talking about it like this among a bunch of people, the whole world will see this, even if they really saw this video, right? Like you make up whatever you want of it. I personally don't think it's ever good though to try to meet things on through drugs, because you're only using it to meet things, you know. And I don't feel like that purpose would be right in the first place.
That's true. It's a very personal experience, and trying to bring another entity into that is actually kind of dangerous.
Yeah, you guys haven't said nothing yet.
Steve-O,
Yes.
what do you have to say about psychedelics being medicine?
So, psychedelics being medicine, I believe, within reason, is great. Because all these other, like the chemicals that they put in, like, you know, modern medicine now, really, it blocks our consciousness, or our subconsciousness to our conscious, and psychedelics open that.
Open what?
Open it is a gateway. It opens up to our self-conscious. Sorry, like
Like your
I'm
inner
in a
mind.
whole different conversation too. So,
But yeah, so you think that it's important as kind of a neuromedicine?
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Now with anything too much of it, is a bad thing.
Right. You can.
You don't want it to addle your brain,
Yeah.
but
Become retarded, basically.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Exactly. Everything in
Hey,
moderation.
what's up, Steven? How you doing?
I've been
I'm
very,
just
very
playing
careful
you a
with my
little
use of
bit.
psychedelics.
No,
I wanted to share this also because I shared it earlier. Just one last thing. If I created psychedelics for humans to use, right, but I want the glory to be in me, if I start seeing those people putting faith in the things that I put on the earth for a purpose, then I'm not gonna let it go down the right path. You know, it's not supposed to be. So I feel like something's gonna happen in the future. Like people are gonna start putting faith in everything, but you know, spiritual influence. It's gonna be in psychedelics. It's gonna be in finding answers through medicine. And I don't feel like that's gonna go down the right path.
So let me throw this question at you here. Do you think that spirituality is better or worse than religion?
I think that religion takes away the idea of why you're really doing it. I feel like religion has turned to a point to where if you're religious, you're only trying to focus on doing it right. You kind of forget the purpose.
It's very
of why you're
rulesy,
doing it.
very rulesy.
It's
for
very
sure.
rulesy, yeah. I mean, it's very rulesy. Yeah, that's a good point, Daniel.
Thank you.
It's very dogmatic. I would tend to agree. Religion has a structure to it, and within the confines of the religion may limit your spirituality.
And not just that, but I remember when I went to church, I would always just fear, like, I don't want to go to hell when I die, this and that. I just got to do this right. I got to live right. Ever since I've actually been trying to put faith, in these things, and actually living spiritually and for God, things have been changing. And my life has been coming into these points in my life. Every time I do an act of faith and I fulfill something, I feel like I'm going finally with my path.
I can relate with that. I think spirituality is a personal venture.
Yes.
And it really, other people can help you along your way, and I think that's kind of what the basis of religion is, that other people are there, they're all going through their paths, but I feel like it's lost its way, in that now you have to adhere to the system, and the system doesn't benefit the individual spiritual path. So when you shed the system and you do your own spiritual thing, I feel like that's the intention of spirituality, which is then warped by religion as we know it today. Yeah, some religions are still like that. They respect your individuality, and they try to get together and send you down the path that best suits you. But there is no one way or system that's a cover-all. So you have to find your own way and your own system to benefit your own spirituality and really learn what you can about the truth of the cosmos.
I love that point. That's really good.
What point?
What you just said, like towards that end as well. And I just want to really say that I feel like I'm here for a purpose, I'm fulfilling that purpose just by being here.
I believe so too.
A lot of I know at least with Christianity, with churches and whatnot, it's kind of like there's like cliques and whatnot, and it's kind of like about social status and whatnot. Everybody's trying to act super perfect, and it's like I don't know. I feel like a lot of people are doing it for the wrong reasons in churches.
It's
like,
reputational.
Yeah, it's like about your reputation and stuff and all kinds of stuff. A lot of being fake and whatnot, acting like you're all holy when once you get home from church, you're doing shitty things, things you wouldn't do around those people. So it's kind of two-faced, kind of double-minded.
It's even what God said in the Bible when people were like doing the wrong things in the church. He even said like, just get out of my buildings, like you're not here for the right purposes. The Jews are putting extra ash under their eyes to look like they're sick, and so people know that they're fasting. They're doing it for the reputation, like today's day in the church. Like people aren't doing this for the right purpose anymore. And even Jesus said in the Bible, for instance, right? I'm gonna make a reference to the Bible, like about religion. Jesus said it's not about being religious. Walk in my footsteps and I will take you,
I remember when Jesus walked into the temple and he was very, very upset over the fact that everybody was using it as a marketplace, and he just lost it, and he started whipping people
and he flipped
in the temple.
Crazy,
he flipped the tables, he whipped people, he lost his mind because he did not like that the temple was being used as a social status marketplace kind of thing. But
that's ultimately where humans will bring it, right?
I think that's what religion does now. It creates a marketplace and an economy, just like the Catholic Church. It is its own economy.
They are
it
tax
has its own
exempt, right?
rules and jurisdiction, as it always has in modern history. And I don't think that's the right way to go about spirituality. You can use it as a tool. Some people get very into Catholicism and then find their own spirituality in the structure of that, and that's okay. But I don't feel like Catholicism and its loose holding of a lot of people that just say, "Oh, I'm Catholic because I was raised Catholic." I don't feel like that's useful to anybody. You got to find your own spiritual path.
Thinking for yourself.
Catholicism is very specific now, so what you have to do in specific.
Oh yeah, it's very like do this, do that, very traditional.
They're trying to respect God, but like I feel like a lot of the Catholic Church is becoming more of money making and stuff like that. It's just
It's always been like that.
I don't trust the Pope at all. Any Pope really.
I mean, he even said like we can't pray straight to God.
That's my guitar, by the way, Ron.
Yeah, and
thank you.
Like Jesus said,
Oh, thank you. Actually, yeah. No,
Jesus said, or God said, don't call anyone else my brother.
Yeah.
I can barely hear you from here, Steven.
Oh.
Yeah, guys, speak up because we have the washing machine over here.
Yeah.
So
And the
just
puppies.
yell across the
Yeah.
table. We're in a relatively isolated environment, so go ahead and yell, and you're going to show up a lot clearer.
Oh, yeah.
And yes, Jason. Yeah, I felt like who the fuck is Jason? Sorry. No, Amman.
I'm over here.
It's
Hello.
the incarnation. That's really rude, man.
I'm
Not
really
very
sorry.
good.
It's okay. It's my
either.
current name. It's
It's-
what I go by.
Yeah.
It's what the
Well,
mortals know me
while
as.
we are
I'm
trying to function on
Alpha.
Earth, we need to adopt, more normal names sometimes. But yeah, I felt like being a left-handed guitar. Thank you. I tried my best. Kind of did it from memory.
Yeah. It probably is kind of strange, like literally flipping yourself around from what you would normally turn into.
Yeah, honestly, well, I'm normally right-handed, so now I'm left-handed. I wanted to try something new. I'm trying to develop ambidexterity, so
That's good. It's a very useful skill.
yeah, very cool, very cool.
It is
Also,
really cool.
Dear
Have you-
studio audience, we apologize for the puppies in the washing machine.
In the washing machine.
There's some cute puppies though.
That's real
There are
life
some
for
cute
you.
puppies.
We
There's a
put
lot of
puppies
There's
in
a
the
lot of
washing
puppies
machine.
back here.
There's 10 puppies.
It's
like,
there's
literally
too
right
many
there.
to try and give a bath. That's too much bath water. We just throw them in the washing machine.
Oh god. They
They'll be
don't
okay. They're
Puppies.
quite resilient. They can take it.
It's adorable.
Oh, we better send you back.
Oh, they miss you.
They're getting jealous of the attention being brought into one pup.
Good old puppies.
Now there's a chorus of them. You disturb the pups.
They'll
The
be
pup
very
pile.
useful in the war.
Right.
You remind me of a
Dogs of
YouTuber
war.
named Psych Substance. Your voice sounds like him a little bit.
It sounds like what?
Psych Substance, ever heard of him? The bald guy?
No,
That talks
I
about
haven't.
psychedelics, ego death, whatever, like what's all these things. Scientifically, what's the drugs, what they do.
Interesting.
He's really
No, I've
cool.
never heard of him.
You sound a little like him. He's from Canada, I believe.
If Jon Snow did acid.
Yeah,
If Jon Snow did acid.
I've done a ton of acid. Acid's the number one thing I've done the most of in the day. Like
Oh, yeah.
years ago, yeah.
I really like acid. It was acid, mushrooms, of course, like psychedelics. They're some of the most pleasant experiences. I never dosed myself correctly to have a crazy see Jesus under the blankets trip or whatever.
Yeah.
But I always got to a level where I really appreciated it, and I never had any ill effects. So for me, I really enjoyed them, and I thought they were an incredible benefit to the planet and the people that live on it, as long as they're used correctly.
I feel like
Last time I did mushrooms, I didn't have a very good trip. You were there for that. Although I did only microdose, so it definitely wasn't dosage.
Yeah, and Craig thought the street lights were his dad coming to pick him up.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah, and he was on the phone with Requiem about the apocalypse.
Oh, we know how that ended. Yeah, it was right now. It was right then. It was happening right
That's
then.
is that when he left?
Yeah, and then so he called his dad because the apocalypse was happening and he needed his dad to come pick him up.
Right, but did he actually leave to go on his adventure? Did you go out
I
of the
think
under
I
at
think
that point?
Requia was in trouble and they had to go pick her up or something. I don't know. We shouldn't get too much into it.
Yeah, that's true.
Dana was gonna say something.
But it was funny. The streetlight thing was very funny, and that's just part of tripping out sometimes.
Yeah, right.
Oh,
He wouldn't listen to us. We kept telling him. He wouldn't.
Steven, what game are you playing?
Snapchat. Snapchat.
The game of life.
How's it going?
Playing the
It's
dating
going
game.
really good right now.
How's your personal life, Steven?
Very good.
It's going pretty good. Moving up at work. Yeah. It's going pretty good.
Solid.
Yeah, pretty good.
That's awesome. Blessings,
Very good.
blessings to you, Steven.
Steven.
What's our next question? What's our next, next
pretty
question?
Okay, let's
I guess
begin
I went
a
back to
good
normal pretty well.
discussion.
Just make sure it's wooden texture is still going on.
Scratch your stomach.
Yeah. I don't. I hear no
Okay,
tones.
so I have a good discussion question for you guys. How is shamanism or early human spirituality different than religion?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
It's purely.
Right. Well, a lot of religion isn't nature-based, and shamanism seems to be very nature-based, right? Shamanism seems to largely be quite nature-based, right?
Yes.
If I'm correct. And I
Shamanism.
don't-
Well, they didn't
Not
have
a lot of
access.
modern religion is like
Ayahuasca and peyote, right?
They didn't have
Okay.
access to reading or writing, so they
Right.
had no written records. Not really. And so each one would culturally go through the same journey and then be designated like in the Greek society. There were no priests, but there was priest people because they were recognized by some merit of their birth and upbringing,
Yeah.
that they were in connection with the gods. And so they would be tasked to go around and act as priests, but it was because of what they had in their mind or whatever. They were recognized as being this as young kids, and so they were just basically told that you're going to be nothing but a priest for the rest of your life because you're in touch with the gods. And so the priest could,
from birth.
well, yeah, they would recognize them as I don't know if it was from birth or whether it was like, oh, this is a child that's sensitive. But it seems like kind of the same ratio of psychics today. Like if you were born and you were psychic, the other psychics would come and recognize you and say, this one's psychic. He's going to need to be a priest of the gods. And that's how they had their priests of the gods system. It was not like you would go to the temple and you could just become a voice of the gods. So it was very shamanistic, and it was a middle ground between religion and shamanism, that only the people that were recognized by merit of their birth would be the priests. And whatever they concluded about the nature of the gods was the will of the gods.
And a lot of that was, a lot of the things they had to say was from what they saw on their trips, I'm guessing.
Yeah,
walking, right?
I don't know exactly what their techniques were, but they
Oral
were...
tradition, there's not a lot written down.
Yeah.
Except those written by Western people.
Well, the Greeks took very good records, so I'm sure there's some context on it, and that's how we know that from their society, that somebody had written about it.
I can see why they do that. I've done some very shaman drugs before. I've done Morning Glory Hawaiian Baby Wood Roast with Syrian rue.
Morning Glory is really interesting.
I did 5 packages of it from the Burpee Company. Grinded them all up after washing them with washing all the mercury, iodine, or whatever you call it off. And
Morning Glory grows around here.
it does,
almost
yeah.
everywhere, yeah.
Hawaiian, Heavenly Blue, I believe that's what it's called. And I did 5 packages of it and ate it, and I was so nauseated. But then things started to change, and there's patterns in my walls. I saw this little silvery looking floating guy flying around in my head, and he was leaving off this rainbow trail, and he grabbed my hand and he made me draw a picture on a piece of paper.
What was the picture?
It was a picture of a smiley face saying, "See you again someday." And then it was really like something was speaking to me through my...
Walmart goodbye, yeah?
It was like speaking to me. Yeah, I guess so.
I was thinking the little Walmart.
But it was like talking to me, and it was it almost seemed a little bit kind of happy but kind of evil. I don't know what it was.
Sometimes we associate evil with being unknown.
Yeah, or creepy or something.
Yeah, because
unknown
we're
is
afraid
always-
of the unknown. It
Yeah,
just happens
Which is
that
a
way.
little Lovecraftian, right? It's because it's about the unknown quite largely.
Well, everything I think unknown to us that doesn't seem to fit, I think our brain immediately responds with fear.
Yeah, it's kind of a default response.
I've done the same thing when a couple of my encounters with shadow people. I should have had the good sense to just be okay with it, but immediately as soon as you see those shadow people, you're like, that's not right. Let's go. We need to flee.
Fight or flight.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the amygdala,
Because-
I believe, in the brain.
You're seeing something that
Yes,
should
that.
not be.
Yeah, you're seeing something that, according to the rest of the understanding you have about reality, doesn't make any sense.
Exactly. I love that you just put it like that. It's
Oh,
a way
yeah.
that...
But the fun part is that you have seen it, and now you recognize that you've seen something which doesn't line up to the way that things should be. So what does it mean?
If an atheist saw these things, would they be in denial or would they be in belief?
They would probably try to use confirmation bias to sort that memory into a reasonable state. I tried to do it one time. So let me tell you guys a story, because this is just a interesting story. So I would jog at 3 a.m. And I went out and I lived in a neighborhood where I lived on a big triangle. So I ran down to the end of the street, and I was just beginning my jogging. And I looked down the street as I was about to turn, and I see this other jogger. And I said, okay, well, it's somebody else jogging at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
That's kind of strange. But then I see that he's taking 8-foot steps, and he's really skinny, and he's complete darkness. And I see him run kind of in the middle of the street, all the way down the street, just very quickly, in probably 4 or 5 seconds. And then I see him run 10 feet in front of me, and I look at him and I go, oh, that's not human, because where his feet should have hit the ground, it kind of fades out, but it was definitely humanoid. So his feet and his hands, they were invisible, but they had faded out up here in the forearm. But the rest of his structure was just solid darkness. And I see him, and he's completely silent. He runs down the street, and past a house and into the woods. And my immediate thought was,
Wow.
oh, if he's running from something, I probably should be too. And so I turn around and go back to the garage, and then I completed the run later and didn't see anything weird. But he was just fleeing whatever it was down the street, and
That's a fantastic reaction. He's running from something. I probably should too.
Yeah.
So you just didn't take that jog right at that moment.
no, I turned right back around, because if he's full-blown sprinting out of the woods into another set of woods to run away from something, I probably should be too.
Well, you don't see a shadow person running every day. You know, it's not
Right.
normal. So that's probably, you could probably take that as a sign, honestly.
I think it's just a random encounter, to be honest with you. I think that he just happened to be running at that time, and he was not worried about concealment in whatever way, and so he just briefly appeared in some sort of way, or maybe as a fear response. I don't know what mechanism triggers it,
Yeah.
but for some reason he was just focused on getting from A to B, and in the middle of it somebody just happened to be there and saw it.
I
So
will say
that was
this.
me.
Do you think that maybe this stuff is actually happening in like a spiritual world, but like let's say something more powerful is letting you have glimpses of it, just so you know that it's there?
No, I think
Yeah.
that it's accidental through our lens as a consciousness, and
It's
like
definitely not intended. It's just chaos.
I feel like any human that was standing there at that time would have seen the shadow person run down the street,
Okay.
because it filtered into visible light. Otherwise, I wouldn't have seen it. It was definitely visible light. Like, I saw it running. It didn't know I was there, but I looked at it running all the way down the street, and it was definitely, I wouldn't say it was visible light, but it was a lack of visible light that was humanoid in nature and
So-
ran all the way down.
And it was okay. And he's basically like a shadow. So he wasn't like flat on the ground or along the wall. No, he's like there, like standing kind of, right? Like running, like
He was sprinting down the
Like
street,
another
and I
humanoid.
recognized it immediately as being humanoid.
yeah.
And then as he got closer, I realized that he was like about 8 feet tall, and his hands and
Wow.
feet weren't there. They faded off like a mist. And I see him just like you would see a shadow of somebody, like if it were totally proportionally correct. There
Yeah.
was a complete absence of light, but I could see him as a 3D structure, like running down the street.
Yeah, so it's 3-dimensional. Wow, that's wild. Dude.
Well, it assumes to be 3-dimensional, but it's his structure is a complete, like 100% darkness.
Wow.
So that's pretty typical of shadow people, though. So I mean, well, I would sum it up that all it was a shadow person running down the street. But you know, the mental side of that you just saw a shadow being from some other sort of dimension, or maybe this dimension, and they're always invisible. Who knows? Running down the
What do
street.
you draw from that as a logical being?
Yeah. How do you rationalize that to yourself, knowing that this should not be?
Yeah.
I would just assume, demon, or angel, whatever, It's like the things that I know of,
I wouldn't call it a
I
demon
would
or an
like
angel.
to presume it's a personal opinion.
It's like nothing. Like, what is it,
It's a weak imprint of something that happened or something that is happening.
To me, it's like an animal, but it's not quite an animal. There's lots of animals out there in the woods, and they take different shapes and structures, and we go out and we see an animal we don't understand, and it just happens to be humanoid in nature, and
What if
we'd have to figure out what it is.
that
We don't
shadow
know.
that you saw running past you was actually just an imprint of you if you had gone jogging earlier and gone into those woods and encountered something and run away from it.
Right.
And that was just you in another dimension where you
Yeah.
left 30 minutes earlier and not
Another
I could
timeline.
see something like that, maybe.
Yeah.
Like that. We don't know the truth.
Oh,
You can make a lot of
Alternate
presumptions.
reality.
is my
So-
point, ultimately.
I read something very brief. It was it's called like the mirrored people. So they would see a person walking, but then they would see that same person walking by that person in almost what seemed to be like 50s style clothing, almost to what we see with shadow people or time travelers.
That's very peculiar.
Yeah,
It is.
it's becoming more of a phenomenon.
I read about that.
Yeah,
I think you
it's
had said
becoming
it.
it's becoming a new phenomenon in the paranormal world and the communities, and no one knows what it is. But what's so crazy is during the 50s, a lot of that stuff in our timeline was actually being, tested. During World War II, Einstein had something, going on the I guess the invisibility, part of technology, and it was like the
Trying to create
Philadelphia
invisibility.
experiment. And so
What about that?
so a lot of hey, what's that? Oh, my bad. What's going on? But
Scare me for a
so
second.
I'm thinking because with
We're under maintenance right now.
yeah, because with with CERN and all these hadron colliders popping up around the world. I mean, there's one in Tennessee.
Oh, what the hell?
There's
Yeah,
a hadron
in-
collider in
Yeah, in
Tennessee.
Oak Ridge, Tennessee.
I want to go to that. What the fuck?
Yeah, I mean it's significantly smaller than the one in Europe. That spans
Yeah,
6
that's the large hadron
countries.
collider.
Yeah, that one
large.
spans 6 countries.
Holy crap.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's big.
That's real.
Switzerland is where
Switzerland.
It's
yeah, yeah. Switzerland's the base,
the main, yeah.
but
I gotta read up on that.
What does it mean? What does it do? Are they trying to gain more speed and momentum to hit the particles together?
they've already
Collider,
succeeded
man.
in
Yeah.
that. Yeah, they've already succeeded in that.
They've
but
done
what they're,
several
but what,
times.
yeah,
That's how they know
creating,
about quarks.
yeah,
Yeah, and the God particle.
little black
Higgs
holes,
boson.
Yeah.
and rips
Yeah.
in space and time, and what they're now seeing.
It's
Like
dangerous.
scientists, like atheists, are now just they're seeing weird things they can't explain. They're seeing shadows of people in in these parts that should not even be.
That's
like,
literally Stranger Things.
Yeah, like yeah, exactly, and like people should not even be in these rooms because of the radioactivity and what goes on in these sections. Like they're seeing them in the Hadron Collider through the little windows. They're seeing shadows of people moving around.
That's weird.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's crazy, and I really think I really do think that we are opening basically vistas of reality, and it's changing our whole perspective on everything. Like there's stuff that we remember that actually never fucking happened. The Mandela
Oh, the
effect.
Mandela effect.
Yeah, I mean,
No,
like,
we're causing rips in
Bernstein
space-time. That's a very
bears?
yeah, the Monopoly guy had a monocle. I remember, like, when I was younger, the Monopoly guy had a monocle. Apparently, he doesn't have a monocle.
He
now.
definitely had a monocle.
Yeah, he
had a
definitely had a
monocle.
monocle. But no, now he doesn't have a monocle. I remember
Well,
a
did
lo-
he ever have a monocle? So basically, it's that he never had one, right? It's not like they changed it along the line.
No, like, he never had one. He never had one. But I remember him having a monocle.
No, that kind of, yeah, I thought so too. Yeah.
But I swear, in the early 2000s, Billy Graham died. I remember
I remember
specifically-
Billy Graham dying
Billy
too.
Graham died in the early 2000s. But it was just a few years ago that he actually fucking died.
Yeah, he died again, according
Yeah.
to us.
But I
You know-
remember specifically, it was shortly after 9/11 that he died.
I'll tell you what, I never gave any credence to the Mandela effect. I chalked it up to faulty memory until I saw it myself. And what it was there's a park that I go to called Memorial Park. It's a World War I or II. I think it's a World War I memorial.
I think that's
But
something
it-
to do with the fire, actually.
But it has a no. It's definitely World War One because they took the time capsule out and they discovered like 700 more people than had died in World War One than they thought just
Yeah,
recently.
It's true.
But
Yeah, that's right.
what it was that there was an angel there and he was holding up, and I think this will be in our intro, but he was holding up an olive branch now. But for 7 years, and I had drawn this guy, and I had sit there on the bench and looked at it in relation to the building behind it, and he had a torch. He always had a torch for like 7 years of my life.
The Bank
He had
of
a
America
torch.
building?
No, Memorial Park, the Angel in Memorial Park.
serious?
Yeah, the Angel in Memorial Park
Do
had
you have those drawings?
had a torch. Yeah, somewhere. But
Find them and show them.
What does he look like?
but he had a torch. Everybody remembers it as being a torch. But if you go there now, after they did the fountain renovation, and I know what you're thinking, they renovated the statue.
No.
But that wasn't the case because I started asking around and I Googled it. And even in 1933 when it was erected, yeah, so World War I. Even in 1933 he had an olive branch.
That's
And
wild.
so I was like, okay, well obviously something is happening because
That's very strange.
yeah, his torch switched to an olive branch according to me, and then
he
I
wasn't
looked,
an olive branch before. He didn't have like both.
no,
No.
he has his extended
It's one
hand like
it's
this.
like this.
Oh,
yeah.
gotcha.
He has an
I
olive
know that
branch.
angel intimately.
But yeah,
I've eaten his ass.
for me-
I'm not even kidding.
That's
for
wild.
me, he always had a torch, and then after they renovated the fountain and they put the fountain back into working use, he had an olive branch.
I climbed the statue.
It's
and
almost
ate his
beautiful,
ass.
isn't it?
Oh, okay.
The
I see.
angel,
I literally did that.
the
I
angel
got you.
himself
Nice.
changed.
But
Yeah,
the whole
of course.
concept of it is just beautiful. It's like it makes no sense,
pretty
but
big.
you experienced it.
Yeah, I can see that.
An angel holding an olive branch. That seems really magnificent to me. I don't
It's
know.
supposed to be something adjacent to Lucifer.
Oh,
You know,
The
well,
na-
okay,
or the angel that's there.
what is the symbolism? Okay, so a torch and an olive branch. So it's like perhaps like something changed in history in
Torch is like mild technology, guiding light, bringing fire.
Yeah, to me,
Whereas the laurel
Yeah.
branch is like bringing a small gift, like
I thought
peace.
I thought of it as peace. Yeah, exactly. So
olive
maybe that's
branch
a
is
sign
definitely peace. I think to me it's kind of strange that he had a torch before, as in lighting the way, or like Lucifer, Lightbringer.
Oh.
Yeah, he's the morning
Yeah.
star.
So that's kind of peculiar to me. But now he definitely has an olive branch, and it's always been about peace. And that's what the statue was always about. But
it's always been.
it has, yeah. You can Google it, Memorial Park Angel statue, and he always had an olive branch. But the way I remember it, and for years, it was a torch. Because the thing that I most remember about it, besides the drawings, is that I would sit on a bench at a certain degree, and there was a skyscraper in the background that always had a light at the top. And the light at the top, if you sat on the bench, was directly corresponding to the torch. And so it looked like the torch was glowing.
Yeah.
But with the olive branch, it doesn't make any sense now. So what the hell was I smoking for years, That
Yeah.
that I had corresponded it like that.
You need to
me,
find those
This goes to
drawings.
show-
to me,
this-
it's a definitive thing, for sure.
This goes to show that there's things beyond us that can easily deceive us and like make us see things that never even happened.
Maybe, I mean, I don't know what the Mandela effect is, but I never believed it until I saw it happen. I don't know what it is, parallel universes colliding into ours or something else. But it changes history, too.
I wonder about multiverse theory.
But like it never really happened
Right,
until they
maybe
started
the-
getting like really successful with the experiments.
Yep, maybe a Large Hadron Collider threw us into slightly parallel universes,
Ooh, man.
Yeah,
or changed details of ours based
yeah,
on
just
parallel
little
universes.
minute things. Like it's crazy.
When I started hearing about CERN, like I don't know, like how in reality, like I'll use this as kind of like a metaphor, but when you walk down a path, you walk down a trail. Picture you're using that machete, you're creating that opening, and you're walking on that trail. And over time, the more people that walk on that trail, I feel like it just starts creating, it makes it easier to go into. It's easier to go through that trail because there's no roots, there's no thorns left. It's just a trail now. You're clearing the way. I feel like the more we learn about these portals and stuff like that, it's going to open the doors to something, and it's going to make it really easy to access it. Kind of like how
the accessible spiritual realm.
Yeah, it's
We're
kind of
really
how.
establishing a very solid gateway.
Yeah, and I don't think that's safe. I just feel like
I think it's inevitable.
I think
I
it's
think
gonna
it has
happen.
to occur, just like the Ragnarok prophecy or the end times prophecy
Exactly.
or Revelations. Every organized religion, it seems like, has some sort of end times prophecy.
But not the Mayan calendar.
Open up
What?
the pit. something like
Maybe
that.
that's
What do you
some
mean,
sort
not
of-
the Mayan
Okay,
calendar?
so this is
Mayan
going
we
calendar
went
had
through
an
that
end-time
already.
prophecy,
This
but it
is
was
going
end
deep.
of a-
I'm about to go
an
really deep
error.
on something.
Okay, let's
So
hear it,
the-
Amon.
All right, so the whole thing with the end times, maybe it's a warning from the reason why it's in religion and long passed down oral tradition that there's going to be some sort of end time is because it's already happened to some contingency of humans or humanoids that lived on this planet within the past million years.
I definitely agree, because a lot of the start of our civilization, and this goes into what we were talking about earlier, the fallen angels allegedly came out of the sky and taught us everything that we knew. And even the legend of Hermes Trismegistus alleges that he came from somewhere else, showed up, and taught us everything we knew about civilization. So the idea that in early history somebody else just happened to be there,
So
just it's concurrent. There's tons of legends about creatures from other civilizations coming to interact with ours and teaching us all about civilization.
Exactly.
And when you really get into it, it really looks that way. For example, 8,000, I think it's 8,000 BC. So let's go back a little bit. 11,000 BC, the Ice Age is kind of really coming to an end. And so you have Egypt in the Middle East is entire grasslands. It's nothing but grasslands and pine forests, and that's a far cry from today, where it's kind of a desert terrain.
I know you're tired.
But in 8,000 BC, there's agricultural tools that show up in Egypt, and then they disappear for thousands of years. So what in the world happened? But then they show up again, I want to say 3,000 BC, they start farming the land in Egypt, and then of course Egypt arises as the huge, massive cultural center that it was. and it's kind of seen about the same time frame that the fallen angels or Thoth or Hermes Trismegistus had encountered human beings and taught them everything they knew. Then again we get the agricultural tools, and then we get the rise of Egypt and the civilization therein. So it's really interesting.
There's a city in central Western Africa that it's an old ruin. It's older than we know. We don't know much about it, and it's mostly lost to the desert. But the architecture in it is larger than current humans or humans that we know, like, you know,
Yeah.
going back tens of thousands of years. So it implies that these like 10 to 15 foot tall beings lived in this city. Implies it could just be large architecture, you know. That's the theory that the civilization shifted from the southern hemisphere to the central part of the world around the equator as we know it, with repolarization after the Ice Age. So there's civilization down there. That idea could be attributed to that city in Central Africa, because during repolarization they would have tried to recolonize near where the warmth was, you know, where the
everybody wants to be on the equator. And after the end of the Ice Age, the equator, or what you would assume to be like the tropical region, started to drastically change. And now we can kind of see an accurate representation of the equator, but in its transitory state, the Sahara Desert wasn't a desert at all. It was a great grassland. And so you can see why Egypt was such a valuable spot at the time.
Yeah.
If you go into the legend of Gilgamesh out of the Middle East, it mentions pine forests in the Middle East, and there are no pine forests there now because it's mostly arid.
What wiped it out?
Yeah,
you know?
well, it's slow global temperature change.
It was that great
We've been in a
book.
transitory state since then, but that makes you think, to me, primarily about Antarctica, and how Antarctica may legitimately have been tropical for longer than we think it was. And then to me, with the repolarization of the Ice Age, you may have gotten a civilization out of Antarctica that came up into the modern world as we know it with Egypt, and then taught them everything they knew from Antarctica, because Antarctica was no longer hospitable.
What if you know, the civilizations over in South America are just a little bit older than Egypt?
It would make sense because, you know, they had their own unique civilizations that were very industrial. The Mayans and the Aztecs and the Incans were very industrial in their own right. I mean, not the same way that we think of industry, but they had their own functioning large empires at the same time as we had Western civilization arising.
They even made water fountains too, like
They had plumbing, and I mean everything the Roman Empire did, they did in a different way in
So-
South America.
So going back to
And earlier.
Let me just say this to finalize this point. South America still has like the Drake Passage and the Magellan Strait area. The south tip of South America connects, you can see how it may have connected very easily,
Yes.
especially if there were lower water levels, to South America. So a lot of egress out of Antarctica, theoretically, if it were recently tropical, more so than our estimates would say, of 50 million years, then it would be easy to assume that the people of Antarctica would have moved up into South America very easily.
it would
and
take
others,
like a day by boat.
Others hit the sail and they went up and ended up somewhere in the Middle East or
If
Mediterranean.
you look at it, it looks like there's a land bridge that used to exist.
Oh,
Yes, most
From
definitely.
Antarctica into South America, because
Oh,
the
yeah,
two
yeah,
points
yeah.
are reaching to each other.
You know, the Bering Strait is the same way. You can see where that land bridge was. That the Native Americans came over from East Asia and walked down into America. And then you're saying at the same time that the Bering Strait was so low, but Antarctica was not that low, and there was no. It's just kind of strange to me.
Yeah.
There's a lot of data that goes into that, and I'm sure I'm not correct, and people on the internet will correct me. But to me, there's definitely a land bridge between Antarctica and South America that, just given that our estimates on glacier and glacial timelines, assuming that they may be incorrect, could possibly lead to and the timeline of human evolution, right? I think there's something in Antarctica that we don't know about, that the glaciers have covered over with miles and miles of ice, that if those things melt, we will discover the remains of ancient civilization, which then influenced ours by coming over and teaching us what they knew about their
That's
civilization.
a really cool theory. Holy crap!
Because
It
it's the
really
only
does make
continent
sense.
that we don't have any evidence about people living there.
And do we have evidence of the Ice Age though? Because the Ice Age.
Oh
was-
yeah.
Oh yeah, God, yeah.
The
But
Ice
how would
Age
someone
ended
live down there though?
about So here's the
We
as
have
far as like
300,000-year-old nails. Those exist. Nails, like a nail you would hammer into a
They
wall
carbon
right now.
date. They carbon date, but sometimes carbon dating is a little bit inaccurate though, based on
Yeah.
like.
It's
how much
always-
goes in.
Even a
I had
tenth
this-
of that
I had
implies
this debate
civilization
today.
existed 30,000 years ago.
the longer you go, carbon dating is only good for a couple thousand years. So if you had nails that were 300,
Yeah, I don't think it was carbon dated.
yeah, it
Yeah.
would have to use another atomic element. But we know the half-life of atomic elements, so if it has a atomic element that we can date in it, then we can find out the true kind of age. And true meaning like the longer you go back with a half-life, the more of a rough guess you're making. But the rough guess is still pretty accurate within its confines. So if you were looking back 2 million years
Go
ago,
fresh with Rem over there.
you would say I don't know the actual
Damn, man, that's
statistics,
my
but you would
asshole.
say that maybe you have a margin of error of like 100,000 years. But you're still looking at 2 million years and 100,000 year margin of error. It still gives you a pretty good timeline of when it happened. You can say out of the 2 million years, it definitely happened about 180. 0.2 shy of 2 million years.
So
If we were to just drain the water levels of the Earth, I wonder.
that'd be a horrible idea.
Well, I'm not saying it's a great idea, but if we did, I mean, I'm sure we'd see a lot of like how all these continents connect to each other.
Oh, most definitely, yeah.
Yeah, and the Ice Age sucked up a lot of that water and glaciated North America and Northern Africa and Lower Europe and a lot of Asia.
Yeah.
So the water levels were definitely lower during the Ice Age. And then suddenly, about 12,000 years ago, the sea started to drastically rise. And so you had a lot of like Atlantis stories about seas that were just succumbing to water.
Yeah, the Mediterranean basin flooded
Got something to
at
say.
least 2 million years ago. At the very least, it definitely did at that point. And
Yeah.
it might have been sucked up by the more recent ice age, and we could have had cities on like much larger islands or deeper into the Mediterranean, like where there was a much smaller Mediterranean. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's actually a really cool running theory in anthropology, is that if the Mediterranean Sea wasn't there, that creates a whole different ballgame. The the migration from Northeast Africa out of and into Europe, it's kind of thrown into a disarray when you have the Mediterranean Sea that isn't there.
Yeah.
Because it throws everything into confusion. Because they didn't have to walk around the Mediterranean Sea anymore. It was just they could go north and south. And so also the Mediterranean Sea would have been a really ideal grassland for human development. And so you would have had like the savannas, which are currently down in Middle Africa, up there in the Mediterranean Sea when it was dry, because it would have been that way for at least 200,000 years because of the lower sea level. So it's a really interesting thing to think about.
You know how like I bring the Bible into this a lot?
Yeah, I mean it's a good reference.
Draw from your knowledge,
It
whatever
was
it may
it
be.
was drawn from experience from somebody, surely.
Yeah. Remember how you mentioned Noah and Enoch, and like how in
Yeah.
the story Noah the flood happened, and it used to never rain on the planet Earth. Rain was then starting there. What if water came from underneath, right?
Oh yeah, I've heard about
And
that before. Yeah.
There's pressure built up, and it exploded, and it went into the Earth's atmosphere, and that's when rain started really coming in. to,
There-
like, play with the
There
world.
all over the world, there are records of a cataclysm that occurred about 11,000 years ago, and then I think another localized flood within Europe and Northern Africa about, I want to say like 3,000 or 4,000 BC, but I may be wrong. I think it's like 4,000 BC. But you can see that there's a very obvious timeline of flooding. And what's interesting about this is that the Sphinx has evidence of flooding on it. Very obviously, geological flooding. And that doesn't make any sense considering its alleged timeline. If it was built with the Great Pyramid of Giza, then it wouldn't have made any sense for that area to be flooded. But the Sphinx being totally underwater makes sense when you think that the Sphinx is just older, and the flood of that area at 4,000 BC by some global mechanism
If the
created
Sphinx is 6,000 years old, then
anything longer than 4,000 years is going to give it that that flooding.
I'm talking about like 4,000 BC or 3,000 BC at the very least for early Egypt.
Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious that the Sphinx
Early
is
modern
older
Egypt.
than we give it credit for. And Egypt flooded at that time, Southern Europe and some of the Middle East would have flooded about 4,000 BC. So the real question is I think the Noah story is definitely a condensed version of what happened, but there were two global kind of cataclysms that could have easily caused this flood. And the real localized flood that occurred at 4000 BC and also the rising of the sea levels at 11,000 BC give us a lot of doubt about which one it really was.
There was definitely civilization 30,000 years ago that we know for a fact.
Why do you think?
There's cities in India that are that old, 100%.
How? Because that's got to be fringe knowledge according to current science.
It was a city with very actually Roman architecture with aqueducts and massive agriculture. It definitely existed. I can't remember the fucking name, or I could tell you.
Yeah, you could find it, I'm sure, on Google.
Yeah, research it, you know.
I wanted to mention regarding flooding. So I will propose another theory. Instead of it coming from within the earth, what if? And I recall reading in a book that this is backed up by the Bible. Well, it's one interpretation of something in Genesis, but basically the earth being surrounded by this sort of spherical layer of ice in the sky, basically, and that basically melted and basically became rain.
That's not possible. I know. I went to a private Christian school early in this incarnation, and they had the same theory. But the idea of a layer of ice in the outer atmosphere is just not possible.
It would collapse.
Yeah.
How much pressure?
Yeah, you have a various progression from solid to liquid to then oxygen, and in a compressed atmosphere like that, just wouldn't work.
That reminds me of Ice Age: The Meltdown, or whatever that one was. Where there's like ice over the whole land, and like underneath.
Wait, that was an Ice Age?
That was the Ice Age.
Oh
Yeah.
gosh damn it, dude.
Yeah, Ice Age is
It's not
about
the
the
movie,
Ice
man.
Age.
It's the name of the movie.
Oh, dude, alright.
Yeah, it's right there. It's
Well,
right there
yes,
in the
I didn't know
title.
they had
Allegedly.
ice in the sky, though.
Or no, it was kind of like underground.
Who
There's
knows?
another world.
That could change.
Oh.
Thanks to the Large Hadron Collider.
I don't know. I think a lot of the cataclysm of
So,
Earth is because
okay.
of that damn squirrel.
So,
So how religion relates
It all
back
started
into
with the
that.
squirrel, man.
We originally brought up this ancient civilization thing because of religion, right?
Yeah.
So all those stories, Noah, the Great Floods, all that being tied into religion, it's a good way to keep knowledge going when you have that tradition, right? Like scrolls, as we made them before now, etc. And oral tradition, primarily before that. We probably had writing at some point before, but stone tablets and all that.
Yeah, I think the 6,000 year estimate of the beginning of our civilization, I don't think it's entirely accurate.
That's the beginning of modernity.
That's the beginning of the
6,000
modern timeline.
6,633 years right now. That's how long we've been here.
Yeah, according to like our earliest dated records.
Yeah.
But it could have been that like a cataclysm occurred and it wiped out everything that could have potentially have been recovered. And that we are
records. Anything they
What?
can
What if that was the flood, though?
No, it's alright.
Like, what if that was the flood that did that?
Necessity.
And it actually does all tie
Necessity.
together. Like, imagine that. Like everything you read in these stories are true, because why would a creator let lies be in a story? Maybe there's a reason why those stories are specifically in there. And
Well, ignoring intelligent design, let's imagine that people intelligently put those things in there in order to carry on that knowledge in some form. So that when we reach this point where we're really analyzing it, like looking at Noah's story, seeing how that relates to historic events as we've discovered them, that kind of thing. Maybe that's the logic behind ancient civilizations, keeping things going through some form of esotericism.
Yeah, I think that there definitely were ancient civilizations, and those ancient and we seem very far progressed. Like evolution it doesn't seem to explain why we ended up so advanced in our current state. Like we're very far from the animal kingdom, and we attribute that to very fast evolution. But I think that very fast evolutionary timeline may not be correct, or it may be a partial observation of a separate hominid species besides one that developed earlier besides us. Because we can see it very clearly in like bonobos and chimpanzees and orangutans. They were almost there, just alongside us in our current evolutionary timeline, and we are a major influencer over their own Stone Age progression. So how can we be sure that didn't already happen? That there was
species, the idea of orcs.
Well, the idea that there was already an evolved hominid, and they just came to us in the late ages of our Stone Age, and said, hey, we already developed advanced civilization, ours collapsed, let me teach you everything that we knew about our civilization, and hopefully that we can all work together and make another civilization. Because the land that we made our civilization in doesn't exist anymore. We can't inhabit it. So I think that's pretty clear when you start looking at like all these early weird texts about fallen angels and Hermes Trismegistus showing up in Egypt and building the pyramids and whatever. I think they're all kind of distortions of the truth that have a common element in them, in that another civilization came to us and then taught the current hominid that we are all about what it means to be part of their advanced civilization. And so we have a lot of knowledge that somebody else already discovered and then conveyed to us.
I love that.
It's really cool, and I think that, you know, the modern body of science is very rigid in that it has to have evidence, and I get that. But you know, when you take everything and look at it together, you can. Yeah, I think if Antarctica melts, I think we're going to discover a lot. Personally.
Oh man,
We're also
that'd be so
digging
cool.
into the ice right now.
And
we
if
just
I-
found a life form that existed 300 miles beneath the surface of Antarctica.
Well, I think that in Antarctica, whether you're wrong or you're right, I think once it melts, I think we'll discover a lot about our world that we thought was true, but Antarctica proves otherwise. And there's miles of ice in between, so no matter how far we want to drill, it's just not possible to get down below the glaciers and into, like, you know,
It's too
what we
much,
would see
yeah.
if we walked around on the surface of Antarctica.
Plus, you need to bring fuel out there, food for people to actually operate those
You
machines.
can't.
Too
I mean,
much.
it's sometimes like 50 miles of ice that you just can't get through.
Holy
That's
crap!
insane,
Yeah,
man.
it's an insane amount of ice. So there's no logistical way to remove a glacial field and then say, what's beneath this field? Is there a city there? You'd have to drill down miles and miles.
Or
into
use
the ice.
remote viewing such as sonar.
Yeah, that's true. And I think there are a couple of anomalies in Antarctica like that.
I will say
Yeah.
something. I have some good news. They're finding out diseases that are immune to temperature, like cold temperatures.
Yeah.
And are coming back to life.
Yeah, they're stored in the Antarctic ice and in
that-
the North Pole.
Scary.
It's
Or they're not
Siberian
immune
ice
to cold
too.
temperatures,
Oh, yeah.
right? They're basically in a dormant state, right?
We're gonna hit another plague at some point.
Yeah,
in
most
our
definitely.
timeline.
Yeah.
But I feel like those things that are stuck
That's
in the
not
ice.
good news.
I don't
I
think
was just kidding.
I don't think you should be afraid of stuff frozen in the ice because it's irrelevant. It's based on an evolutionary pattern that it adapted to that is no longer applicable. So I don't think we have any reason to fear any disease stuck in the ice
Feel it.
because it works on systems that were millions of years ago or hundreds of thousands of years ago, and it'll just get completely decimated by the modern immune system. I don't think there's anything to worry about.
Possibly we're at our as so far our peak
Yeah.
strength.
No, if you just threw it in the dryer, it'd be totally safe. It's good.
Possibly,
If
I
you
don't
threw that in
know.
the dryer, it'd be totally safe.
We got 2 minutes, guys.
All right.
Oh, the last question that you guys were going to say.
All right, do we have one more point that we can attack?
The science, maybe life thing. Science.
Just real quick, how do we know that we are even spiritual beings?
Oh yeah.
I really wanted
What?
to share my point of view on that.
Next time.
Next time?
Yeah.
All right.
We'll have more time to go into some of these.
We can
We'll
keep going.
recycle
We can
some
go-
of these.
We can go past an hour if we want to.
I'd like to keep it at an hour because I think
That
it
would be
creates
best.
a...
I can
yeah,
explain it in 1 minute and 30 seconds.
Go for it.
All right.
Exactly how much time you have.
So basically what I have to say is, how do I know that we're spiritual and not just science? Because science applies, and I feel that spirituality is a type of science that we don't understand. And I will say this. What were the chances of the cell that your father gave to your mother was going to have you? What was the chance that yours was going to make it there? What were the chances that they were going to meet? What were the chances of all this? Every time you do the math, it just puts the power of itself in front of that number and makes it so big, and the chances of you existing so small. Life is the rarest thing in science, and it's unexplainable. And what were the chances that they would meet? What were the chances that they would meet at that time? What were the chances they would have sex at that time, because your cells regenerate every day? What were the chances of their parents meeting to make those purposes? I believe...
I understand that, but it was going to happen somebody inevitably.
Right.
Somebody was going to be born.
Yeah, somebody was going to be
Right.
born no matter what.
And
But
they
why
were going to
me?
be a combination of those two genetics.
Why
I
do
don't know,
that?
but
I exist.
Everyone born is asking
like
that.
a micro scale, that is such an astronomical chance.
Our ability to process that makes us unique, I think. But every other animal on the surface of the earth has the same thing applied to them, even vegetables and fruits and fungi and everything. So they all, out of all the possibilities, they ended up being the iteration of that. But everything, I don't think the excess data is relevant. I think the ability to ask that question is the most important thing about that.
I think that you were given a chance on this earth to live spiritually. Your scientific body was made and a spirit was put in it. That's why we're here.
Maybe there's some exterior force that allows us to be the combination that we are for a reason, definitely. And that it isn't completely random. I could get behind that.
Cool stuff.
Yeah, that other spirits are interacting with our selection of DNA to create, hopefully, creatures that maybe push the cosmic agenda of unity and discovery and consciousness, which can really expand the boundaries of what we know. I think that's it, guys. We're going on an hour here.
That
so
could be God.
Closing statements?
Yeah. God.
Don't try to meet God on acid, and if you do acid, you're not God.
That's true. Don't put your faith.
I'd have to agree with that.
Yeah.
Closing statements, Rim?
I'm still a guitar. Hey.
Hey, you look good, man.
Thank you.
Oh yeah. Damn
Steven?
sexy if I do say so myself.
No,
Steven,
thank you very
closing
much.
statements?
Hell yeah.
I don't know why they keep summoning me here.
You're trapped.
You always
on this
show
plane.
up.
I know.
Well, no, it's like that you're just trying to drive to the gas station and you somehow just black out and you show up here every time, right?
These spirits, man, they kidnap me.
Wild.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. It's whatever.
Okay, that's what I like to hear.
Okay, yeah.
Fran?
You're being games right now.
Don't put your just be careful, I guess, in the world, and what you put your faith in, and always think about where you are. Always think about where you are, and just be open to I guess thoughts.
Yeah.
And I believe that we're on this earth for a very beautiful purpose, to create a story, and what makes us unique as a human being, and we're all given a chance on this earth by something inevitable, like you said.
Brando, closing statements?
God bless.
Oh yeah.
None?
I've got nothing.
I'm of the same variety.
Wash your face.
Alright, so I think that's it. The
Nothing to
battery's
say?
dying here. What?
Nothing to say?
No, I don't have anything to say. I'll be on next time, so don't worry. If I have closing
Always.
statements, I'll bring it back next time. Alright, so that's it. The battery's dying. We're done for September 28th. We hope everybody a good night and good luck on your spiritual progression.
God bless.
We'll see you next time.
Love you guys.
Love you guys too.